Hello everyone. So for the last video we finished up the first of the three series, adding the very dark colors that represented the kind of darkness and pain. And now in this painting we have the color representation of sadness. We still have that pain and we still have that darkness. But as I'm looking at this particular painting, what I see here is what looks like almost like sky and something that looks almost like the ground. And when I see kind of the dark and the white lines, it almost looks like snow. And so not really sure what this is looking like. So what I want to kind of do is for this painting, it might actually take another round. So this might not be the final draft, but I kind of want to isolate what looks like a horizon and what looks like a sky. And then again, reds are not my strong suit when it comes to colors, but I kind of just kind of starting to draw out what I'm seeing here. And so I've got, I'm going to start with the ground. That's pretty simple, right? Black and white. Can't get it wrong with black and white. And uh, this has much lighter grays than the previous painting. So, and I also used a blade brush while painting this. And so I definitely want to stick to the use of the blade brush. But instead of doing kind of an all over black, I'm going to kind of do an all over gray. So I'm mixing a pretty decent chunk of my black with a lot of white, and I'm just going to kind of get this this lighter gray. It's I don't know what I always think of, like U.S. military ships as having this kind of gray, and this gray is maybe a little bit darker, but it's okay. And again, as I did with the previous painting, I'm just using the acrylic. I'm not watering it down. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start and draw in kind of a rough horizon line with this darker gray, kind of where I see that um, those colors. Um, this isn't exactly a straight horizon, so maybe we might have some hills here. We don't actually know, but I'm going quite a bit into the red just because, that's for selfish reasons. I'm not a huge fan of red, and it is a weakness of mine to not to either avoid or to not use reds. But and now that I'm getting this horizon on here, it definitely is. It's definitely feeling more like hills or something like that. So just trying to outline what this line looks like. Maybe it's hills covered with snow. Uh, it could honestly mix and match, and I kind of like it being a little bit crooked like it is. That gives it a very interesting feeling. But it doesn't. So this painting is still going to be in that abstract realm, where and the first one was definitely abstract, whereas this one we wanted to start um, feeling like you're recognizing some of the shapes. Whereas the last painting, we definitely want it to be almost all recognizable shapes. And so I am kind of making this feel a little bit more like it could possibly be maybe a mountain range or something like that, even against the red. And then, maybe there's going to be some snow on it. Um, just kind of getting that horizon built up. This particular horizon line from a mountain standpoint, again, this doesn't have to be necessarily perfect, but just getting it to feel a little bit more like a recognizable shape. And the only reason to do this from a painting perspective is um, without this horizon, your eye is kind of always wondering like what the focal point is. And so this allows the eye to relax a little and simply enjoy the painting. And in the previous one, it was very abstract, and um, but it was still like part of the reason I chose the color schemes that I did and softened those color schemes was again to relax the eye and allow it to be pleasant to look at. Okay, so I've kind of got now what appears to be mountains. It wasn't going to be mountains before, but now they are. And I am kind of coloring in any place that there's red. And these mountains, honestly, can be in the background. You know, maybe they're just part of the background and maybe here's the horizon. And so I'm gonna maybe make that kind of happen where these mountains kind of do exist. Again, not really sure where that red's gonna come into play, but I'm gonna just kind of play with this. Um, I very much like the idea of the mountains. You know, as I'm painting this, it's almost looking like maybe this will be a sunset, or some version of that. Um, I don't feel like mountains are this big. I am not the greatest with proportions. So I like that, and but I also like the idea that there's going to be just kind of a snowy foreground. And so I am gonna do a little bit more on the white and um, and just do as much plain white as I can kind of get away with here. I'm just kind of creating some snowdrifts here. And there's going to be black in the background. This is a little bit watered down, but just the idea that there's going to be, this might mean that there's going to be trees in the foreground. Not really sure. Not exactly using this blade brush, kind of, weird, holding it in a weird way, but particularly like blade brushes when doing snowscape. And I'm almost out of white. I have, out of all the colors I have, I think I have 4 tubes of white paint. It's the one I use the most. So I think that's kind of gives the vibe of maybe a snowy, drifty area. Just trying to get the brush kind of cleaned up. And the nice thing about this particular putting a white on kind of over what was already existing, I am likely not going to have to go over this with a whole lot, other than maybe adding a little bit more gray to darken it up. But this is definitely, and honestly, I think this is actually really appropriate with the feeling of kind of the the sadness coming into this feeling, these paintings about feelings, in the healing series. Uh, if you think about, we're kind of in the middle of winter here in Minnesota, and this is definitely, there's the dark days of winter, right? And there's that feeling of kind of sadness. The sun is not quite coming; it's just starting to come back. And this almost looks like a like a lake or something. That's very cool. Very cool. So, I'm happy with that for now. I am going to turn it over and let's see what I can figure out with this. Now again, this pink, I'm not sure what I want to do with this, but the blues, that to me looks very much like a sky. Um, it is a little bright, you know. I kind of want it to be a little bit more on the darker side. And I also like this brush stroke for, the softer brush stroke. So we're just gonna leave the red for now. If I don't have any inspiration by the end of this video, then it might just stay that way. So for this one, I cannot tell which type of glue that I used. So I'm gonna kind of put. I think I like the phthalocyanine blue better than the ultramarine blue. So I'm gonna maybe just see if I can get that. Gosh, my brush is just covered in paint. It has really kicked down there good. Okay, probably you don't need to know all that, right? So I've got this, and I'm gonna just see if that's remotely the same color. That's good. So I very much like the dark blue, um, and I love all of the colors that it's doing. So I'm not going to change a whole lot with the color scheme with the blue, other than to thicken it up and add more. That is it. That's all I'm doing. So adding, I feel like to get this shade of blue, I probably added a little bit of black, but I'm just going to stick with the colors that are on here, um, just because um, I definitely need quite a bit more paint because I'm gonna want to blend these colors, but um, just essentially getting the color on canvas, adding a little bit more white to it. Um, if I need to go back and make this darker, that's fine. I do think that the blue by itself is dark enough. Um, so next, I happen to have some white on my palette already, and I'm adding just the smallest amount of white. Um, and there's just so much paint on my brush. Okay, so just adding, and I think that's way too bright. So I'm gonna add a little bit of gray on my palette. I'm gonna see if that can darken this up a little bit. Absolutely not. It looks gross. Let's see if black, even worse. Yep. So that color, way too bright. So we're gonna have to darken this quite a bit. So um, again, I wouldn't have known that until I tried. I definitely do want some of those darker vibes, like still in the healing process. This part is pretty bright, so maybe adding a little bit of darkness to the sky to show that transition. So I just added basically a little bit of black to the blue, and I'm kind of going back in with that. It almost makes it look like it's nighttime instead of daytime in this imaginary sky. It doesn't have to be a sky, um, a realistic sky. It just has to. I'm just kind of going with whatever the colors are telling me to go with. And a little bit more of that lighter blue kind of got into this, but that's okay. So just making that a little bit darker. Now I'm gonna go in to that original color blue and just see what I get by adding that in and over top. And that looks much, much better. It's nice and dark. Um, we're not, we're not at the end of this, but I definitely like having that much darker color. Again, this is, so as with the previous painting, I definitely put the paint on quite thick to cover up the canvas, even though we don't know that this is necessarily going to be permanent or not. The idea that we're getting close to getting this done. That's it. So it might not be the final copy, but it's going to be close. And then I'm just going back in and kind of blending where those darks and lights kind of came together. And I very much like the idea that this darker blue is kind of blending with this much lighter blue, adding a little bit more depth to what we're going to just call the sky for now. Alrighty, so now to try to find a balance between this very dark blue and the light. I almost feel like I'm gonna just have to go with a very, very light blue. So I'm gonna take a very large chunk of white and I'm going to do a hint of this blue. And it does create a very bright robin's egg blue. Again, way too bright for what I'm looking for. So I'm adding just a hint of black to kind of make it a little bit more smoky. Um, and apparently my hint was a little too much. So I'm just gonna kind of show you where I ended up. It's not quite the color that I want, but I'll keep adjusting it. So it's just um, a little bit smokier. And just comparing this like with that bright blue, I think it could go a little darker. So just adding a little bit more of the blue and then a little bit more of the black to get it kind of in that smoky light blue range. And so still pretty light, but at this point I'm just gonna roll with it and see what we end up with. Um, if they blend, they blend. If they don't, they don't. This is acrylic. I can always go over it at a later time. And you can see that this particular shade of blue, it definitely takes on more almost teal tones instead of the ultramarine blue is definitely more in um, it takes on more of the lighter blues, whereas this one is more in the teal colors, and that's okay. Um, and so I am going to go back in and grab some. I can't tell if this lighter blue or the darker blue is wet, but just going in and kind of overlapping them a little bit. They don't necessarily have to be light or dark in this particular, um, for this painting. There's not that emphasis on the darkness, so it is okay that um, that this is lightening up a little. I am just going to go right into that regular blue without any of the color on it and just kind of get those two to blend. I'm not gonna lie, they do not blend well. It's kind of fun that they are not blending well. That part really amuses me when colors don't um, play play nicely together. Um, this is gonna sound interesting for anybody who applies makeup, but I don't actually wear makeup, but I obviously have seen videos of people applying makeup, and the way that I am getting these colors to blend kind of reminds me of trying to get eyeshadows to blend. So that's just kind of a, if you're a makeup artist, maybe that resonates with you, trying to get these colors that maybe don't really want to work well with each other, but getting them to blend. It's very interesting color dynamics. Now, for these spots here, um, I actually kind of just want to go with bright white. It's going to mix a little bit with this teal, and I'm okay with that. But I just kind of want to get those bright white um, on there, and it's going to kind of be in that realm of, maybe some other stuff will show through, but that's okay. So just kind of doing very bright white, and I can go back and then blend it a little bit, but I like that it stands out. It looks so different to this from the surrounding areas. So again, I'm just getting my brush very dry from paint, and then I'm just kind of blending with what's already on the canvas, and just very lightly going into some of those other colors. And some of these colors are still going to be wet from the other, because I just recently was adding some other colors. So some of them are still, they're going to blend really well, and some are not going to be blending at all. So like this particular spot, it's the very dark blue was already dry. So I'm essentially just kind of softening the existing line. Now, some of these look like they should connect and some don't. You can tell there's quite a bit of blue on my brush because it is turning all of the white into very blue. All right, so that is that. I'm going to turn it over, see what we see. Um, that sky looks absolutely fabulous. Still no idea what this is, but I am seeing that there's this purple. Now I know purple and teal will not play well together, but if we're looking at a sky, um, especially like Northern Lights type of a sky, um, the purple we can add that independently. So I actually kind of like the idea of this Northern Lights type sky, kind of sunsetty. I am going to start with very light pinks and then kind of work into into the darker blues. I'm very much liking the way this is turning out. However, because this is more of a teal blue, to get these purples, I'm going to go with the ultramarine blue. So, and in the place of the red, I think I'm going to be using the magenta just because it'll start blending those blues and those purples together. So I am going to start with just magenta. So, and I'm going to um, definitely go with um, some black in the magenta, kind of honoring these darker colors. This was done with a blade brush. However, looking at this, it is looking more like a skyscape. Um, so in a skyscape, whatever's going on in the sky is going to reflect on here. So I am going to actually grab my blade brush, which just has, which I think only had white on it the last time. I am going to add just a hint of some of these teals, these sky colors, before and I'm just going to kind of add just a little like places where, you can see the, where maybe the sky is reflecting. And this is the lightest amount of color possible, but it's just showing that whatever's going on in the sky is reflecting in the snow. So just adding a little bit of that color. And then I'll do the same with the pinks. So I've got magenta, I've got a squishy brush, which I was trying to keep this as professional as possible, having good professional sounding names, but you know what? I'm going with squishy brush. And I've got a little bit of black on my canvas, or on my palette, so I don't want to be wasteful. So just a hint of black with this magenta. See what kind of sky color. I already don't like it. Too much black. So maybe just, but the magenta itself is too dark. So this black with the magenta is making it almost a purple color, so I might not even need to make a separate purple. Yeah, this is quite dark, but again, it's a sky. So this color actually looks more like that. So we'll just go with that. That'll be my purple. I think the easiest way is going to be a line of purple. And, this is definitely magenta. I don't want to have my brush, I want my brush to be pretty thick with paint. I don't want it to go light on me. Hopefully the teal won't um, blend with the magenta too much. This painting is taking quite a bit longer just because I wasn't intending to necessarily finish this, but it is kind of looking like it could be finished today. Um, as with intuitive painting, I don't ever kind of want to let the painting take me wherever it's going to go rather than intentionally um, going a certain direction. Oh boy, that was a big glob of paint. The brush is still very globby. Not the best for detail work, like trying to avoid the teal. And another way to incorporate some of these blade marks would be by adding more streaky lights to it, but it doesn't have to be that way. Um, it would just be a cool way to incorporate it, um, or to simply just add more of these like little white slices. Kind of, where this purple meets the teal, it isn't blending. They just look kind of clashy together. So that might be a place where some of those white um, brush strokes might, or those white blobs might make the colors come together a little bit nicer. And the night sky definitely has, it doesn't always look like a perfectly painted canvas, and perfectly painted canvases don't always look like the night sky. So the fact that these colors don't play well together, it's actually probably more realistic than if they did. So that's kind of looks more like that purplish color, just some magenta and black. Um, I kind of want to just see if, without cleaning my brush, I'm just going to kind of go into this just plain magenta and see if we're getting some of that. And you can kind of see a little bit of the whites coming through it. You can see a little bit of this dark color also. Both of those are good. They add a lot of flavor to this canvas. And if I get into my mountains a little bit, that's okay. It's not a big deal. Those are way easier to clean up than that. The sky is crazy busy. It would be a lot harder to try to, I don't want to say fix it, but it would be a lot harder to change something on the sky without having to repaint over it all. So that looks like I got all of kind of those darker areas. Um, Again, I'm only rinsing off my brush just because there's so much paint on it. I'm going to just do kind of blend where I can. These colors happen to be both wet at the same time, and so just seeing what I can do to get those two colors to blend a little bit. They aren't covering up the white at all. That's fine. I'm okay with the colors being, like I said, not perfect. And now, very, very little white into um, the pink to get some. So I'm starting with fresh white and then adding a little bit of that magenta to that to get kind of a rosy color. It's too bright, too pink, too happy. Um, so I am gonna go with maybe a scoop of this kind of a purplish color to get it a little just darker, muted. Um, it definitely looks purple now, and see it's definitely in that range. And I'm only gonna go where there's pink. I very much like these white blobs in here, so just kind of wherever there's pink, I'm gonna go with that, and then I'm gonna try to replicate the those almost northern light looks. And once again, just getting my brush very, very dry and getting these colors to blend. I guess, you know, if I made the reference to eyeshadow before, maybe this particular reference with the pinks and the purples, maybe this is like getting lipsticks to blend. Maybe with a little bit of that white, it'll start to cover up some of those white blobs that are kind of showing through. And the paint is definitely drying now, so it's a little bit harder to get these colors to blend. This is part of the reason that I kind of move a little bit faster with these types of paintings to get those colors to blend quickly. And this sky just looks phenomenal. I love the way the colors are blending. Calling it a sky for lack of a better term. Actually, I think get some of that darker color in there. It just looks super cool. And now for the pure white. So getting those pure whites to kind of blend. And again, that was very challenging to do with the blues up here. I feel like this series of paintings is gonna get me through my entire stash of white paint, of this entire bottle of white paint. So again, just pure white paint over these blobs, and lots of white paint. And we're gonna blend it later, and then I'll go through some of those teal and purple meetups and see if maybe they could get a better align, but the white. So yeah, basically anywhere where there's this teal and purple, I'm kind of just gonna create a boundary. It doesn't need to be there, but I personally just think that the white and the teal could blend a little bit better with just plain white. Actually, I don't like it at all. I'm going to do something else. Okay, so white, dry brush, getting those white spots to kind of blend in with what's already there. I will talk through what I'm going to do with that other area. So for right now, though, just getting this white area to blend with the magenta. Whoopsie. Kind of getting that very bright white areas to blend with the surroundings. Very cool. Um, so with this horizon line, I actually like the idea of going with a darker blue. That'll just the dark blue will go well with the purple, the magenta. So that'll blend really well with whatever's going on with this um, kind of almost a cosmic sky. And now that I've kind of got these colors on here, I do think that adding like a few stars might make this blend a little bit better. And I am leaving this paint pretty chunky. That's okay. Quite a bit of paint on the brush. And you can tell that like clearly there's quite a bit of the magenta on my brush because even when I just barely tap into the white, it is staying pink. And then that pink gets blended into the surrounding area. The paint is drying quite a bit, trying to go as fast as I possibly can to get some of these colors blended. This is quite a bit more white than on the blue sky. I'll have to do. And it is much harder to get these when I'm going around in a circle to get it to blend. And this is part of the reason that I definitely go with the big globs of paint. They're much more wet so that the colors blend out a little bit better. Much better. Now, again, I'm going to go along that teal line with a very dark blue. I believe I have some on my I said I believe I have it. I have absolutely no idea if this is the right color or not, but we are gonna go with it. It's a very dark blue, quite a bit of black. Um, I believe that's, again, just kind of almost trying to find that line between the teal, because I don't want to lose the teal, but I also don't care for the teal touching the purple. That's personal preference. You know, some people they enjoy that, some people don't. I also really like the dark blue up against that dark purple. This one I'm going a little bit slower with, just because um, the sky is pretty well done, and I certainly don't want to add anything that's going to make me have to redo all of this work. So we're at 45 minutes. Maybe we went over longer videos. Fair warning, as these videos progress into more the kind of the ending videos of them, they do take quite a bit longer as I start to get a little bit more fine tuning with some of these. pictures. This very, very common. It took me, I think, the last one I did when I was doing the finishing work and the detail work, it was much longer than the the starting videos. Okay, so I am gonna just get my brush dry a little bit and kind of just add blending that a little bit more into, and it's also kind of softening it and lightening it into that color again, so that that's much, much better. So again, just kind of I'm not really even mixing these with the same colors that I had before, but just essentially creating a line for that dark magenta, or black with this blue, kind of a mystery color. And I actually really like where that blue and the magenta kind of match up or meet up. Some of this white will actually be covered with, I said that I was maybe thinking about doing some stars in here. I very much love the idea of a star field. It's almost looking like a cosmic sky, something that you'd see in a sci-fi film. I am definitely keeping this more on the purple side of the teal, just to allow that teal to continue to shine out. It's a very, very thin line of teal. Again, just going back in, blending that as much as possible. This is very, very black. You can see that there's hardly any blue in it, but let's see, very cool. So, the next step is, and I added some of those with the blade brush, some of this darker blue. I'm actually going to do the same thing with the that magenta that I made. Um, kind of some kind of a version of that magenta. Just kind of adding some very light streaks in the snow, kind of wherever the snow is. Just getting some of that color in there. Just adding that. Now is the time to add the star field that I was talking about. So the the method that I have typically used for this uses a toothbrush. But what I am going to use today is just a paintbrush that I have. And I'm adding copious amounts of water to some white paint. I'm running out of places with white paint. My palette is quite full as I've been working with this. I'm just going to practice real quick on my palette. So essentially the motion is like this, just creating little star field. I don't know that you can see it that well, but that is going to create kind of that cosmic feeling that I'm getting out of this particular painting. And that's good for the start field. Now, honestly, I think that the mountains could be finished up today. Definitely using the blade brush. Um, with this being kind of a starfieldy type feel, I'm going to just use plain black to outline this, and then and that will outline those mountains again, kind of clear up those, and then just kind of use a light brush stroke um, to get kind of a, I don't know if there's any hills or something in there. So just kind of going very light, not actually even trying to make this a clean line. Mountains are very jagged, so I definitely do want to get some of that jagged feel to the mountains. And you know that they are not perfect, nor is the sky. Just getting some of those imperfectious feelings, but not taking away. The sky is clearly the star of this show. Definitely, I feel like that was a pun. So just getting, but just keeping these mountains in the background, but very jagged. Well, that's kind of a, here we go. Not really sure how to clean these up, but the if the point of the painting is more the star field, then we want to just kind of downplay these mountains a little bit, and just essentially adding places where maybe there's some paths or maybe there's going to be some snow, but just adding kind of that feeling of an actual mountain. Definitely have to cover up some of these my snow, my star field to, and then that kind of looks weird to have the foothills right in the middle. So as somebody who goes to the mountains, this is a lot harder than it looks. I've never actually drawn mountains like this, so it's kind of fun. First time experience with this particular way of expressing mountains. So I'm gonna kind of get a few in here that are this way, but kind of getting those shaded areas. Again, going back in and very intentionally getting rid of those stars. They don't have to be gone, but and then last little round of mountains that are kind of going away. It's kind of fun. Never made a mountain like this. All right, and then those are I think that those are dark enough. I don't know that they necessarily need any white. I don't want to take away from them. I definitely think I personally think that this could be done. I think that adding white into the mountains would take away from it. I do think that the snow could be darkened considerably to again kind of put it in the background. So I'm going to add quite a bit of gray to my and we're going to add just as much gray as I can possibly get away with to this snowscape that's in the in the foreground. I'm trying to avoid covering up my blues and my magentas. I think that those are very much still very good, but just adding much um, gray to kind of darken this as possible. And this I might need to, I don't necessarily want to use too much water, but just kind of getting that flowing feeling that's going on. That makes it much. So just adding a little bit of water to this paint to get it to flow, and I already like that so much better, just kind of darkening up. And this is not where we started, you know, in my mind when I started this was definitely snow, and now it's more like snow at night. So just you know, that's part of intuitive painting. That's the part that I like, is that you just kind of, you know, you just roll with whatever the wherever the brush takes you, I guess. And I will definitely need to clean up that horizon line. So we're seeing wherever this is quite a bit different than where this particular foreground started. But it is kind of staying in line with what we did start with a little bit more of those angled brush strokes, and then the sky being a little bit more of the kind of that softer brush stroke. So that is so we have, I guess, stayed true to kind of where this started. And this is definitely, you know, very close to what us, the ground would look like. I am gonna clean up. It did get a little bit dark, so just kind of, oh my gosh, way too much. Kind of cleaning it. I am, you know, kind of losing a little bit of those blues and those. This is part of the canvas that is taking away from the skyline, and so just making sure that it doesn't take away too much. So just keeping this kind of simple but still muted, much darker than it was before. There we go. And I am going to clean up that horizon line, just making sure that it's visible. So essentially just straight black. Just kind of a nice. This particular painting, there isn't any, you know, trees or anything like that. There's no life. Um, the horizon line isn't exactly straight, but um, that's that can also be, you know, incorporated, having a little bit of some hills that make it less of a straight line. So just to make it stand out a little. Um, that's kind of my secret when doing horizons, to make sure that they aren't even, so you can kind of make up for any mistakes. And I think that that one is also done. That one took a lot longer, but we ended up finishing it in the time that we had, so that was very cool.